What would happen if the person who loved you more than anyone, who held you when the world turned its back, suddenly vanished from your life? And if, after years apart, you found them not in the glow of dreams, but struggling in a forgotten corner of existence, how far would you go to right the wrongs? What price would you pay to heal the scars of the past? Adrian Voss, at 34, is a name that dazzles on Forbes' covers. The youngest millionaire dominating Silicon Valley with Voss Technologies, a tech empire worth billions. But beneath the tailored suits and the smile that conquers boardrooms, Adrian is a man with a scarred heart, haunted by memories of Nora Sullivan, the nanny who gave him unconditional love in a lonely childhood. This story isn't just about wealth or power. It's about Adrian's journey to confront guilt, uncover his family's dark secrets, and risk his entire world to reclaim the light Nora once kindled. All right, my dear audience, brace yourselves for a story that'll leave you speechless. Take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly connect with what I'm sharing here. And drop a comment below to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always thrilling to see someone joining us from all corners of the globe. The Voss Mansion in Malibu, California, was a magnificent fortress. Waves of the Pacific roared outside its glass walls, but inside, the heart of the home was as cold as stone. Adrian Voss, a 6-year-old boy with deep brown eyes, wandered through marble corridors spanning 25,000 square feet. He counted each step to chase away the loneliness. Paintings by Picasso adorned the walls, chandeliers glittered overhead, yet nothing filled the void in his chest. His parents, Roland and Victoria Voss, were titans of the tech industry, fleeting shadows always rushing off to Tokyo or London, leaving Adrian with cold dinners and the distant gazes of tutors. Love to him was a lavish dream, a treasure found only in the books he secretly read under the glow of his bedside lamp. Each birthday, Adrian sat before a white frosted cake. Candles flickered, but no one sang. He learned to smile for himself. That smile, fragile as glass, crumbled under the weight of isolation. The house, though splendid, was a silent labyrinth. His footsteps echoed like desperate whispers. Adrian didn't cry. He stopped at 4, when he realized tears wouldn't bring his parents back. Instead, he locked his heart away. Loneliness gnawed at him daily, like waves eroding stone. Then Nora Sullivan arrived. She was the first ray of sunlight piercing a storm. At 27, Nora carried a simple beauty. Her curly brown hair fell loosely, her green eyes clear as a Montana lake at dusk. Unlike the nannies before, who merely clocked hours for pay, Nora saw Adrian, not the Voss heir, but a boy with a scarred heart, yearning to be heard. She knelt down, level with his gaze, and asked about the dreams he hid. For the first time, Adrian felt he existed. On Malibu's beach, under a boundless blue sky, Nora taught him to fly kites. The string trembled in his hands, like a heartbeat coming alive. The kites soared. Adrian's rare laughter rang out, mingling with the waves. On nights when nightmares jolted him awake, Nora sat by his bed, stroking his hair. She sang Nebraska folk songs of trains crossing endless prairies. Her voice was gentle. It swept away fear like a river. "Money doesn't make a person, Adrian," she said, pressing a warm hand to his chest. "It's your heart. Don't let this world take it." Her words carved themselves into his soul, a tiny flame burning through the darkness. To Adrian, Nora was more than a nanny. She was a lighthouse guiding him through bleak days, the family he never had. Each hug was a promise he wasn't alone. When Nora told stories, her eyes sparkled. The world seemed to live in her simple words. Adrian would curl up in an armchair, clutching a pillow, drinking in every syllable. He imagined himself an explorer braving forests or a knight fighting for justice. Those moments, though fleeting, were a balm, the only light in the icy world of the Voss estate. But even light can fade. Adrian didn't know his days with Nora were numbered, that fate would soon tear her from him, leaving him once more in shadow. Nora was all he had, but the Voss world never spared room for simple things like love. In his tender heart, Nora had planted a seed of hope, yet he was too young to hold her close. That boy, with eyes full of longing, could never have guessed these warm memories would become sharp blades, cutting deep years later, when he faced a painful truth about his family. Adrian Voss, at 16, stood on the threshold of a shattered world. One June morning, the news sliced through his heart like a razor. His parents, Roland and Victoria Voss, perished when their yacht sank off the coast of Miami, swallowed by the deep blue of the Atlantic. The Malibu mansion, once cold but at least graced by their fleeting presence, now stood as an empty hollow. Its echoing waves sounded like a lament. Adrian, with red-rimmed eyes but lips pressed tight to hold back tears, felt like a small boat abandoned in a storm. No anchor, no shore. He had no time to grieve. Voss Technologies, a tech empire worth tens of billions, laid an unimaginable burden on his shoulders. Lawyers in black suits, with gold-rimmed glasses and dry voices, surrounded him in the boardroom. They explained he was the sole heir. "You must take over," they said, as if it were obvious. Adrian, his heart still bleeding, nodded, but inside, he was screaming. He wanted to flee, to return to those days on Malibu's beach where Nora Sullivan held his hand. She taught him to fly kites and believe in dreams. But Nora was now just a memory, a wound he dared not touch. Grief choked him, but Adrian didn't know how to face it. He locked his pain away, shoving it into a deep corner of his soul. There, it gnawed at him nightly. He threw himself into MIT, where complex lectures and sleepless nights became a numbing drug. They helped him forget the emptiness. Memories of Nora. Her clear laughter like wind chimes, her gentle hand wiping his tears, her soothing lullabies on nightmare-filled nights turned into shards of glass. Beautiful, but piercing. Each thought of her tightened his chest, as if his heart were being squeezed. He told himself Nora had found new happiness, that she was thriving somewhere, perhaps in a small house with a flower-filled garden, like the stories she once shared. "She's fine," he repeated, a mantra to ease the guilt of losing touch. But deep down, a faint voice whispered, he was wrong, terribly wrong. Adrian sank into the world of Voss Technologies. Spreadsheets, boardrooms, and soulless numbers became his refuge. He learned to wear a mask, flashing cold smiles at investors. He signed billion-dollar deals with steady hands. But each night, as San Jose's lights dimmed outside his penthouse window, he felt like a stranger in his own skin. He was no longer the boy who ran on the beach, holding Nora's hand. He was a machine, driven by his parents' legacy, a legacy he never chose. Nora, the only light in his childhood, was now a faint shadow, buried under layers of duty and guilt. No one told him the cruel truth. Nora had been erased from his life right after his parents' death. Without explanation, without a cent of severance, she was dismissed. A mere smudge on the pristine page of the Voss legacy. Roland's assistants, with icy stares and thick files, slammed shut the door to Nora. They severed the last thread tying Adrian to love. She was thrust into an unforgiving world where vicious rumors and injustice crushed hope. Adrian, lost in numbers and pressure, remained oblivious. He never saw Nora's letters, blocked by secretaries. He never heard her calls, cut off by emotionless voices. The woman who had been his lighthouse was now fighting to survive, while he, in his blindness, built an empire on the foundation of a betrayal he didn't yet know. In Adrian's mind, Nora remained sunshine, smiles, a gentle hand. But the truth waited, sharp and inescapable. It was ready to shatter his mask. The boy who once trusted his heart was now a man, standing at fate's crossroads, unaware that his next steps would lead to a painful reunion where guilt and love would collide. 14 years passed. Adrian Voss, now a millionaire bathed in Silicon Valley's glow, stepped into Chicago under a biting October rain. He sought shelter in a small diner called Starlight Diner, a weathered hideaway on the outskirts, where neon lights flickered weakly and the faint smell of grease lingered like memories of days gone by. Torn leather booths, worn wooden tables, and a stifling air, all alien to the Michelin-starred restaurants he knew. Yet something held him there, a vague premonition, as if fate were whispering. Adrian settled into a corner, his coat soaked, his eyes aimlessly scanning the sparse patrons. Then he saw her, a gaunt woman, her faded apron clinging to a fragile frame, moving between tables with calloused hands. Her gait, though slow, carried a familiar resilience, like the steadfast breeze on Malibu's beach long ago. When she turned, Adrian's gaze froze. His heart shattered. It was Nora. Nora Sullivan, the light in his dark childhood, stood there, older now, her brown hair loosely tied, strands of silver glinting under the dim lights. But her green eyes, clear as a Montana lake, still sparkled with the warmth he'd leaned on to survive lonely days. Time had etched its marks. Crow's feet at her eyes, slightly stooped shoulders, yet it couldn't extinguish the quiet fire within her. Adrian sat, his chest constricting. The air seemed sucked from the room. The boy who once held her hand, laughing on the beach, was now a man. But before Nora, he felt small, vulnerable, and drowned in guilt. She didn't see him, unaware that the Voss heir watched her, his mind torn between memory and reality. He waited, silently, until the diner emptied. The clatter of dishes faded. His hands trembled as he raised them. His voice emerged, lost and fragile. "Nora?" She paused. Her tray tilted slightly, her eyes darting with confusion. Then recognition hit. A cup slipped from her grasp, shattering on the floor. The sharp sound cut the silence like a blade. White porcelain shards scattered, reflecting the light. They mirrored Adrian's fractured memories. Nora stood, eyes wide, as if facing a ghost from her past. They sat at a corner table, the space between them heavy with painful silence, oppressive as the rain outside. Nora began to speak. Her voice choked, each word a cut to Adrian's heart. After being fired following his parents' death, she was thrown into an unforgiving world. No explanation, no severance. She was erased from his life like excess ink. She sought work, but every door slammed shut. Life dragged her from Detroit's frigid slums, where moldy walls reeked of despair, to this diner. Here, she toiled 12 hours a day, her feet aching, just to afford a cramped apartment. Meager tips, sometimes mere pennies, were all she had to survive. Her voice quivered, not with resentment, but with resilience, as if she'd learned to rise after every fall. Adrian listened. His chest tightened, as if an invisible hand squeezed his heart. The woman who gave him the world, hugs, stories, dreams, stood before him, exhausted. Yet she retained the dignity he once admired. Guilt surged, sharp and relentless. He had lived in skyscrapers, signed billion-dollar deals, while Nora, his childhood's only light, fought to exist. He wanted to scream, to fix everything at once, but his throat was dry, leaving only helplessness. He left the diner, stepping into the cold rain. He vowed to return. His mind was a storm, flooded with unanswered questions. How did she end up here? What had his family done to her? And how had he, in his blindness, abandoned her? His steps were heavy on the wet pavement. They carried the weight of a past he couldn't escape. Dear audience, take a moment to relax or grab a glass of water. Then dive back into this story, with surprises still ahead. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see someone join us from around the globe. Comment 1 if you love this story. It'll inspire us to bring you more captivating tales. Back at the gleaming headquarters of Voss Technologies in San Jose, Adrian Voss was a man adrift. Sleepless nights stretched endlessly before him. The image of Nora Sullivan, her weary frame under the dim glow of Starlight Diner, her hands roughened by years of toil, haunted him like a ghost that refused to fade. Guilt pressed heavy on his chest, a gnawing pain no wealth could soothe. He paced the sleek, glass-walled office. San Jose's skyline sparkled beyond, but offered no answers. Driven by a burning need to understand, to unravel the mystery of Nora's downfall, Adrian slipped into the company's archives, a dusty vault of forgotten files. His hands trembled. He flipped through yellowed pages from his parents' era, each sheet a key to the truth. What he found was a blade, sharp and merciless. It pierced his heart without pity. His father, Roland Voss, had orchestrated a betrayal so cold it chilled the soul. Orders, penned in Roland's precise hand, directed Marcus Heller, the family's trusted lawyer, to fire Nora Sullivan without warning or severance. But dismissal wasn't enough. Roland sought her ruin. He ordered Heller to spread vicious lies, whispers that Nora had stolen precious jewelry from the Voss estate. Those falsehoods, sown in the shadows of the industry, blacklisted her. They slammed shut every door she knocked on. Adrian's breath caught. He read an email from Heller, its tone dripping with mockery, jeering at Nora's desperate job applications, her pleas for work dismissed as a thief's cries. Each word was a fresh wound, proof of a cruelty Adrian never imagined his father capable of. But the true blow came from a document labeled Sullivan Agreement. His mother, Victoria, once radiant with untouchable elegance, had written an order as ruthless as it was calculated, a payment of $100,000 to Nora, not as compensation, but to buy her disappearance from Adrian's life forever. The file claimed Nora had accepted the money, her signature scrawled at the bottom. Adrian's world tilted. The room spun as betrayal clawed at his core. Nora, who taught him honor, lived in the heart, who spoke of dignity over wealth. Had she taken the money and abandoned him? The thought was poison. It seeped into every memory of her warmth, her laughter, her hand on his shoulder as they watched kites soar over Malibu's beach. His hands shook. The paper crumpled under his grip. How could she? How could the one person he trusted betray him so cruelly? He drove through the night to Chicago. The slick roads gleamed, mirroring the storm in his soul. Starlight Diner stood quiet. Its neon sign flickered like a dying star. Nora was wiping tables, her movements slow but resolute, when Adrian burst in, his voice raw, trembling with anger and pain. "Why didn't you tell me about the money?" The words hung, sharp as shattered glass. Nora froze, her cloth clutched tight, her brow furrowed in confusion. Then her eyes darkened. A storm gathered, not of anger but of deep hurt. She set the cloth down, her fingers quivered, and she faced him, her voice low but steadfast. She told the truth. A truth that shattered the lies he'd been fed. Marcus Heller had come to her years ago in a dingy motel room where she scraped by after her dismissal. He slid a check across the table, $100,000, with a contract demanding she cut all ties with Adrian. Nora's eyes had blazed with resolve. She tore the check to pieces, the scraps fluttering to the floor like ash. "I told him I'd never sell my love for you," she said, her voice breaking. Not from weakness, but from the weight of her conviction. She had walked away, penniless but proud. She refused to let greed taint their bond. Heller, it turned out, had forged her signature. He pocketed the money and cast her into darkness. The truth was a whirlwind. It swept away Adrian's last shred of faith in his family. Adrian stood there, rain dripped from his coat, the diner's hum fading into silence. Guilt surged, sharp and relentless, a living thing clawing inside him. His parents, the architects of his world, hadn't just abandoned Nora. They had engineered her destruction, all to keep her from him. His mind reeled. Memories of Nora, her lullabies, her hugs, collided with the brutal truth of the Voss legacy. He wanted to fix it, to erase her pain. But in that moment he felt only powerlessness, like the 16-year-old boy who lost everything. The truth was laid bare, yet it opened a new path, a challenging path, where Adrian would face himself and all he had lost. Adrian Voss stepped into Starlight Diner the next evening, his heart heavy as lead, yet deep within, a faint spark of hope began to flicker. He carried a plan, not the familiar numbers or contracts of his world, but a burning desire to erase the pain he had unknowingly let Nora Sullivan endure. His mind was a tangle. Memories of Nora, her clear laughter, her gentle hand guiding him through lonely days, clashed with her image now, weary and drained in a faded apron. Guilt tore at him, a living creature, but beneath it lay a new resolve, a longing not just to make amends, but to honor the woman who gave him everything when he had nothing. When he spoke, his voice was soft but firm, like a wanderer finding light after endless darkness. He offered to buy Nora an apartment in Chicago, a brimming bank account, anything to free her from the crushing weight of grueling shifts. He wanted to restore the life she deserved, to wipe away years of suffering. In that moment, he believed money, the tool that always solved problems in his world, would be the answer. But Nora paused. Her hands trembled slightly, and she looked up. Her green eyes, clear as the days they flew kites together, now blazed with sharp resolve. She shook her head, not in anger, but with an unshakable conviction. "I don't want your money, Adrian," she said, her voice low but steady. "I raised you because I loved you, not for money. Taking your money now would betray my own heart." Her words struck like a hammer. Not painful, but shattering the armor Adrian had built through years at Voss Technologies. His chest tightened, not from rejection, but from an awakening. Money, his weapon to sway rivals, settle disputes, build an empire, suddenly seemed small, meaningless before Nora. She didn't need pity, nor lavish gifts. She needed what he hadn't considered: purpose, dignity, a chance to leave her own mark. Nora's words were a flame. They burned away his arrogance, forcing him to face his mistake. He had seen her through a lens of salvation, as if she were a victim to be pulled from the abyss. But Nora was no victim. She was the resilient woman who taught him to rise after falling, who held him through nightmares and gave him faith in his heart. Respect surged within him, mingled with a bittersweet ache. He realized redemption wasn't about restoring what was lost. It was about giving Nora what she truly deserved: a chance to shine, as she had for him. His mind reeled. Memories of Malibu's beach, where Nora taught him value lies in the heart, became a torch lighting his path. He returned to San Jose, canceling all meetings. He brushed off his assistant's curious stares. In his penthouse, he dove into research. He read stories of those wronged, people like Nora crushed by the system. Night after night, he sketched a vision, not for profit, but for change. His soul, once caged by the Voss legacy, felt freed. Each idea a step to honor the woman who shaped him. After weeks of tireless work, he invited Nora to his office, a gleaming space with glass walls. Nora entered, her thin coat stark against the opulence, but her gaze steady, as if she belonged anywhere her heart beat. "Nora," Adrian said, his voice trembling with sincerity, "I'm starting a charity called Sullivan's Beacon to help those wronged, people like you. I want you to lead it, not as a figurehead, but as its guiding force. Your heart, your experience. That's what this needs." Nora hesitated, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes shadowed with doubt. She felt unworthy. Adrian's world seemed too vast for someone who scrubbed tables. But Adrian insisted, his voice gentle yet firm, echoing her words to the boy he once was. "You taught me how to live. Now teach the world." Nora fell silent. Her gaze swept over him, as if searching for the child she loved. Then she nodded, her voice soft but clear. "All right, but on one condition. This will do real work, not chase fame." Adrian smiled, a smile of relief, as if a weight had lifted from his soul. For the first time in years, he felt not as the heir to a ruthless empire, but as a man on the right path, beside the woman who taught him what love meant. Sullivan's Beacon was more than a charity. It was the flame Nora had kindled in him, now poised to spread, illuminating the world's darkest corners. Sullivan's Beacon launched a year later at a community center in Detroit, Michigan. Nora, with her quiet resilience, designed programs to aid the unemployed, single parents, those forgotten by society. Her office was a small room, adorned with photos of those she helped, each smile a testament to her impact. Adrian, once a millionaire consumed by deals, now found joy in supporting Nora, from funding scholarships to building shelters. But Adrian's journey didn't end there. He launched an internal investigation at Voss Technologies. He exposed the corruption of Heller and others. He uncovered a final secret. Heller had secretly sold customer data for profit, a practice his parents had tacitly approved. Adrian sold off the unethical divisions. He funneled the profits to Sullivan's Beacon. The company's stock plummeted. The press criticized him. But Adrian didn't care. For the first time, he was building a legacy free from his family's ruthlessness. One autumn afternoon in Detroit, Adrian and Nora stood together at the ribbon cutting for Sullivan's Beacon's second community center. As Nora cut the ribbon, the crowd cheered. Adrian gazed at her with pride mingled with gratitude. In that moment, Nora revealed a secret that stunned him. Years ago, she had quietly used her savings to pay college tuition for one of Adrian's friends, helping them escape poverty. "I didn't just want to save you, Adrian," she said, "but everyone who needed a chance." Her words were a breeze. They swept away the last traces of guilt in him. Adrian resigned as CEO of Voss Technologies. He chose to work full-time for Sullivan's Beacon. He and Nora became a family unbound by blood, united by love and purpose. They expanded the foundation from Chicago to Atlanta. They brought hope to the darkest places. Through their journey, they proved that true wealth lies not in what we own, but in the lives we touch, the wrongs we right, and the lights we kindle in the shadows. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see someone join us from around the globe. Comment 1 if you loved this story. It'll inspire us to bring you more captivating tales.